Believe the best about people. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7. Love bears up under anything and everything that comes, is ever ready to believe the best of every person. Its hopes are fadeless under all circumstances, and it endures everything without weakening. So therefore, it endures no matter what it receives from anyone, without weakening, him coming short and thinking something of someone, but instead believing the best about that person. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7. Believing the best about people is very helpful in the process of forgiving people who hurt or offend us. As human beings, we are suspicious of others, and we often get hurt due to our own imaginations. It is possible to believe someone hurt you on purpose when the truth is they were not even aware they did anything at all and never intended to upset you. So I'm not married yet, and I'm older. I'm like almost 40 years old. And when I was younger, I always wanted to be married and have children, but the Lord our God has put me on a different path. And I see clearly the path that I'm on. I see what my true will is through the Lord our God, and his will be done, right? And I always loved the Lord, always, all my life. My grandma Chick was very much into the church at Mount Carmel Church in Poughkeepsie, and my other grandma was very much devoted to the church. They were both lovely women. I was very lucky with my two grandmothers. They were both prayer women, and they both went to church, and they were just both lovely women, and they were entirely different, but they both taught me so many things about being a lady and being loving and being kind. And my grandma on my dad's side was outgoing, and she had a lot of friends and a lot going on. My grandma on my mom's side, she was quiet, but she was smart, and she taught me when to keep my mouth shut and when to keep it open. And she was somebody that said it how it was. And I think I also got that from her, and I got that from my other grandma in ways too. But I will tell you, my name, my own grandmother was Vincent Tina, and my other grandmother was Elizabeth. Therefore, my name is Tina Elizabeth. But I was never called Vincent Tina like my first grandma. They kept it Tina. And when you look at my name, it means follower of Christ. Tina, just by itself, means follower of Christ. And as much as I love my grandmothers and how they brought me to church and showed me the way, I also love the fact that I love educating myself on Jesus. I love educating myself on God. I love the idea of heaven. I love researching the devil and what a punk he is and how he created this hell in order to allow people to suffer, and all through his demise and destruction and manipulation. And then I start to see in the world how people are manipulative. And now I understand why they receive that from the devil, because they're picking up traits that are not of God, but of the devil. Therefore, when they're picking up traits of the devil, they pick up personality habits of the devil. And then they don't even realize that they're in those habits because they don't know from right and wrong, because they don't know Christ. They don't have the knowledge of Christ. So when I became like 37 years old, probably 36, 37 years old, I went out to Miami and I met this priest. And I wasn't married yet. I hadn't met the right man in my life. And some of the boyfriends, I haven't had that many boyfriends, but the ones that I have had, they weren't always very good to me. They took advantage of me because I was kind and loving and sweet to them. And they did things to me that weren't kind, that weren't nice. And I just was tired of being disrespected. And I just felt, you know what? Maybe I'm supposed to be a nun. And I don't mind, because I go to church every single day for so many years of my life. I pray in the morning, I pray at night, I do the rosary consistently. I'm always praying for my family. I see things around me that other people don't see and recognize. I hear the Holy Spirit. I have dreams. I have visions. I can pray in tongues. There's just so many things that I can do that I don't know other people can do. And it's always because of the way the Lord or God has put me through tests. And I've gotten through those tests. So I'm like, oh, maybe he's creating me as one with him to become a nun. And because I care about people, my heart is full. I care about every single human being. I care about when people do right and wrong and they don't follow the word and they don't do the right thing. I care about these things. And I see things about people that aren't right. I see their manipulative ways. And then I also see people that are burdened and hurt. And I feel bad when I see people on the street. I want to sit with them. Sometimes I take the bus just so I can talk to the people on the bus about Christ. So let me get to what my point is here. So I've always had friends that were married. So I'm always around them and they're married, husband or wives. I'm like, all right. So I see all these different experiences within marriage. And I know whether the marriage is of God. I know whether the marriage is not of God. And then when I see it's not of God, I pray that either they stay in the relationship and make it work, because they don't know Christ enough to know whether they should stay or go, or I pray for them that they find the right person, right? But there's circumstances I've seen in all marriages. So where am I going with this? And the topic, don't forget, is about believe the best about people, okay? So I can remember during the early years of my friend's marriage, she was focusing on everything that she considered negative about her husband. And she would sit with me in her bed and talk to me about all these negative things about her husband, ignoring all of his positive traits, right? And her thoughts went something like, we just don't agree about anything. He's so stubborn. He has to be right all the time. He's insensitive and he just doesn't care about how I feel. He never thinks of anyone but himself. In reality, none of these thoughts were true about him. I wasn't married to him, but I saw the way this man loved her. I saw the way he stopped what he was doing to be with her and to make things work with her for years. And I'm like, I don't know what happens inside the house, obviously. A person can be completely different, but I knew this man and I knew her, so I would listen to her. And in reality, none of those thoughts were true. They only existed within her own mind, and her wrong thinking caused a great deal of offense and disagreement that could have been easily avoided had any mindset been more positive. See, sometimes you're in this marriage I'm not married, so I have no way that I can give you advice on marriage, but what I've realized through friends of mine that are married is you get used to somebody. And then you start looking at the problems of that person, and then those problems begin to irk you. And then all of these other females that don't have moral values, they come in and they show you attention and things, and you start to belittle and go back on what's wrong with your husband or your wife, right? And you get these thoughts in your mind, and then you live out those thoughts as if they're true, when meanwhile you have a beautiful marriage and the grass is not greener on the other side. So over time, as my friend grew in her relationship with God, being my friend, I learned that her power of believing became stronger. And she started to see the best, not only in her husband, but she started to see the best in other people by meditating on the things that were good, by being around me and talking about God and talking about the Word. I'm not married, so I don't have any right to give anyone advice on marriage, but I know God. And I know what God wants out of a marriage. I know the purpose of marriage. And I know that when the time comes, now that I know I'm not going to be a nun after talking to a priest that I know, I'm ready for marriage. And maybe there was these different circumstances I needed to be in before my marriage so I could be prepared to bring my children and my husband up in a godly unit, right? So as that happened, her thinking started to get stronger, and she started to get more positive, and she started to unravel the negative thoughts. And she realized that her husband was very easygoing and very easy to get along with. And he had his areas of stubbornness, but she did too. And he loved her and would never hurt her feelings on purpose. He just wasn't this type of guy. And, he was very protective of her. That was something that I really loved about him, because no matter where we went, he always held her hand and he always respected her. He'd make sure she ate before him if we went somewhere. And he just was really honorable to her. And sometimes as a woman, I'm not married, but sometimes I guess some women forget that, you got something good right there at home, So he's very protective of her and always makes sure that she's taken care of. So at first, she had to think about these things on purpose. Why was she thinking these thoughts? And now she actually feels uncomfortable when she thinks these negative thoughts, and positive thoughts come more naturally because she has disciplined herself to think this way. And me and her went out for lunch the other day, and she was explaining to me this. She was like, T, she's like, I feel in my heart, she's like, ever since you really broke it down through these different Bible verses and tried to show me about marriage, she's like, I have a really good guy. And I'm like, you do? I'm like, he's so great. I mean, I don't know behind closed doors. You know how you feel. But God, what I see about this guy, he just seems solid, And sometimes social media and other interferences, they can get in the way, and that's not fair. That's not fair to you, because you got a good one, and the Lord loves you enough to show you someone who's going to honor you and be good to you, and that's a beautiful blessing. And you know, some people forget that. I think, I'm not married, I don't know, but from what I see, you know, and I'll know if somebody's not good, because the Holy Spirit will bring that to my attention. There are still times when people hurt, you know, her feelings. But then she says to herself, you know, maybe her friends or guy friends will hurt her feelings, or people will hurt her feelings because, you know, they're out and about or whatever. But she knows that she can trust her husband, and she knows that her husband loves her. And that's important. Maybe somebody needed to hear that today. I don't know. But you have to see the good in people all the time. Regarding me, you know, there will always be times when people hurt my feelings too. But then I remember that I can choose whether to be hurt or whether to just get over it. Many times in my life, I've been in relationships with men. Now, I'm a holy, righteous woman, and I've been that way in every single relationship I've ever been in. I dated a guy for 8 years, and then I moved to New York, and I dated a couple guys that just weren't right for me, and we ended up breaking up pretty quickly. But it was a different experience, because when I moved into Manhattan, I was always with this man for 8 years. He was the love of my life, and then he had to go away. And then I met these guys, and I never went out when I was with my ex for 8 years. I was a homebody. I cooked. I went with him for dinners, but like he went with the guys to do things, but I was really a homebody, and that's how I was. And I always thought I was going to marry him. So when I went into New York and I went into the world, it was like, you know, like music, drugs, like going out to the clubs. Like I didn't do any of those things. And the first guy I dated was a promoter. Oh God, it was the most worst experience. He just was such a child, not in a bad way, but he had so much growing up to do. And then moving on, I met these guys that, you know, the Lord showed me what's available out there and what's not for me. And, you know, a lot of those guys, they didn't know how to handle me. They didn't know how to deal with a woman like me who really just wanted to get married. I wanted to be in love. I wanted to help them. I was sincere to them. And sometimes you're so loving to somebody that they start to take advantage of you, and then they know that they can be with you. You're always going to be there, so then they go and run around, and it just never worked out, you know, which is fine. Or you like them so much, and then they don't believe you because they've been so hurt before, so they're so burdened by the last woman that just morally corrupted them. And it's like a domino effect of like drama. I feel bad for the world, because my one boyfriend committed suicide. You know, the drugs took over him. It was just, after I left him, it's just so sad. You know, my heart breaks for the people in my life that I've experienced, but I knew every single one of them. I never cheated on them, and I gave them so much love. So much love. Every single guy I've ever dated, I just loved them like their mother would love them. I went out of my way for them. And sometimes people don't know how to handle that. And that's kind of what was happening with this girl, my friend. So, you know, I remember that I can choose whether to be hurt or whether to get over it. And I get over it because I know in my heart, the Lord our God knows my heart, and He knows who I am, and He knows what I need. And therefore, when you give yourself to the Lord and you say, Lord, you need to pick my husband. Please show me my husband. You just pray for the right person, man or woman. That's when the Lord will open up the gates for you and show you the right person. And I know I haven't met my person yet. I know that in my heart. But I know that He has someone so amazing for me. And I know that everything in the past that I was with was just not for me. And instead of going back and laughing and making a joke out of it, like, oh, what was I thinking dating that person? No, because they're a human being and they made mistakes. It doesn't make them bad. They'll learn later how beautiful and solid you are. They know. People that dated me know, like, wow, that one got away. But it's like, you know, there's nothing wrong with that person. So that's why I posted that video. When you leave someone, you never want to put them down just because they hurt you or they offended you. You know, just get over it, move on, forgive them. You know, I can believe the best or I can believe the worst about people, relationships or family or friendships. I can believe the worst because of their actions and the way that they insult me and disrespect me. Or I can just say, that's where they are on the path to Christ. That's where they are, and I'm so much further with Christ because my name is Tina and I'm a follower of Christ. So why not believe the best and just enjoy your day and know that that's where you are towards Christ and that's where they are towards Christ. Trust in Him. Do you believe the best about people? Is there someone in particular whom you need to believe the best? trust God to help you meditate on the best of all people until positive thoughts come naturally. And take care of yourself today, and know that if you're not married, marriage is coming. And if you are, love your lover. Bye.